Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Anne-Marie can't join us today, but she'll be back next week, and we'll be looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I'm joined today by Dale Walsh, who is, he's self-described as a poet and mental health mentor, but he's also more than that because, as he's about to tell us, he's had his own struggles and triumphs regarding mental health, and it's on a topic that we really have never explored here in over 2,000 episodes here on the program, which is the topic of schizophrenia. It's not something that I have any expertise in, so that's probably why we haven't touched on it so far, but I think today we're going to break through on that. So Dale, welcome to the program. How you doing today?
Very well, thank you, Walton. Great to be here. I thought LOA was something like having to do with laughs because the name of the show is happy. So
yeah, well,
I'm very joyful to be able to bring some happiness to people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say about me, you bring laughter to mental illness, which I've never seen before. So
that's good. That's powerful.
Right. Basically, I usually start with a poem. I'm a poet. I have an archive of 5,000 poems, and so I have 5,000 written since 1985. So,
wow.
But basically, I have two introductory poems, and the first one is about it's sort of like the story of what I'm trying to get beyond. So I'll use the second one, and it's called My History in a Nutshell, and it goes like this. Well advanced to becoming Bob Frost, at Dartmouth I my mind lost, and was from Ivy League tossed. Put into therapy, considerable cost to have my brain teeth flossed by the doctor whom he bossed every night after I get sauced. Doing my duty at my post in hospital where I was host, and met the beautiful female Jill, for whom over dale, over hill I trekked when I was ill, until I found the perfect pill to keep chemical and bound steaming still, which made romantic chances virtually nil, even while perfecting my poetic skill. I hope will pay the bills for sodas on which I fill.
You love the AAAA rhyme scheme, don't you? That's really cool.
What was that? This is actually my informal. I call it a Dale. It's It's 6 words a line and 2 sets of 9 rhymes apiece.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So I have written a lot of them, and actually I collected them in my second book, which is called Fossil Fuel for the Brain, which is available at D.E. Walsh on Amazon. But I just came up with this. Was like the Lord inspired this form in me, and it's just like so I went with 5,000 poems. Sometimes I just like get a form that I like a lot, and I just like go with it for as long as I feel I'm effective at it. And it usually turns out that the more I do the form, the better I get at it. So
isn't it funny how that works, right? I mean, the more you do something, the better you get at it.
Right. Yeah. And it's recently I got a mission from God at the beginning of June to write 64 poems explaining schizophrenia to the American public.
Well, before we get started, we got to find out about your story. I mean, we definitely want to talk about schizophrenia because we need to have that education, but we need to know your story and how that led up to this.
So I'll start at the very beginning. I was born Roger Dale Allen in Midland, Texas on May 24th, 1955. And on my first birthday, my mother, for whatever reason, divorced my blood father.
Oh my goodness.
Divorce went through on my first birthday, according to my sister, and she remarried, and I moved to Abilene, Texas, and her name was Mary Alma, and she married Jody. So Jody was the daddy I knew coming to consciousness and everything. So so basically to me he was a great father. He was like a Army Reserve officer, and so he was like, he wasn't rigid, but he was strict. He didn't let you get away with anything.
Yeah, I imagine. Right.
So so then he was my daddy for 8 years, and then my mother went up to New York to see or Washington to see her brother one time. And long story short, she returned to Abilene, Texas, with this high-powered lawyer named Judge Lawrence Walsh, who and by the way, when I was adopted by Jody, my name got changed to Joseph Dale Tompkins. So I was born Roger Dale Allen, and then I became Joseph Dale Tompkins.
So you went from one end of the alphabet to the other.
And then Judge Walsh, each one had a different birth certificate. So, and then Judge Walsh came in, and the 10-second story is my mother divorced Jody, married the judge, and I moved from Abilene, Texas to Midtown Manhattan. And from like basically a like populous situation in Abilene to like high society in New York City, because my father was like a very well respected lawyer and everything. So, and actually he actually turned, I don't know if you know the name, but he actually ended up being the Iran-Contra Independent Counsel.
I thought the name was familiar, but I wasn't going to say. Okay.
Yeah, he and when he was doing that, well, actually, it's interesting that when I got taken away from Dartmouth in the summer of 1975. So basically, I entered Dartmouth as a freshman in the September 1974, and I was very academically successful in upper level courses as a freshman. I had like a B+, A- average, but I was doing every drug possible as much as I could. So basically, in the summer after my freshman year, the delicate balance, mental health balance I had tipped into like psychosis. And so basically I came up with what I thought was a great joke, which was, "Hi, I'm God." And then I'd be like, see how long it was before I burst into hysterical laughter, because how could God be 5'8"? So to me, it was like a total absurdity. But unfortunately, this was 1975, and very few people had such a sense of humor as I
get
did.
that. Yeah, I can see that might rub people a long way. Yeah.
So 3 days after coming to my revelation, I was one Tuesday I was a successful Ivy League student. The next Tuesday I was in the best mental hospital in New York City for 13 weeks.
Wow.
And this led to 5 years in the psychiatric program of intensive. It was like run by a single doctor for adolescents and young adults, troubled adolescents and young adults, basically for kids whose parents were rich enough to like have the doctor take over the kids' problems,
Yeah, got it right.
But it was like it was like the program, and the doctor was like extremely like well respected, and everything, and I could go into him, but I won't. But so anyway, I was in the program for 5 years, and I was given intensive therapy, 3 individual, 2 group sessions a week. We all ate together every night and everything. So it was like a real community. I was in there for 5 years, and during those 5 years, I was Doc hospitalized me 9 times just because the program would become so claustrophobic and so mentally constricting to me that I'd have to find an outlet, and the only outlet I had was the hospital. So they loved me at the hospital. I mean, I was in 6 St. John, which is the mental unit of Hackensack Hospital, 14 times from 1976 to 2005. So, so basically, the nurses love me. The doctors would examine me and everything, and but so I was in the program for 5 years. I got my own apartment. Went back to Fairleigh Dickinson University. Graduated magna cum laude in English in 1985. Started an entrepreneurial career as a tutor, helping people write, helping Fairleigh Dickinson students write papers. Okay. And if I can be perfectly honest, I didn't help people write papers. I wrote the papers. So basically, so basically, I wrote 300 papers in 10 semesters. 300 5-page papers in 10 semesters.
Right. Yeah.
And then I sort of got burnt out from that. So basically, I was on disability this whole time because of my diagnosis. So that just began a period of degeneration, or no, degeneration is the right word, but basically I just spent the days writing poetry and getting through the day, and then my friend who worked across the street at Sears would come home, and we just drink beer and smoke pot till we passed out every night. So this went on until he got kicked out of the apartment because he was drinking all his wages and beers. So
yeah, that doesn't work well.
And that's a story that has ramifications later. But anyway, so then my mother, then I went straight, sane, and sober. Well, I gave up cigarettes after 35 years in 2000.
Good for you.
And then in 2007, I gave up everything because my mother hated my partying so much. So I went straight, sane, and sober. And then, to be honest, I am still sober. But actually, about 3 months ago, I went back to cannabis, and it was a conscious decision coming up on my 70th birthday. But I gave it up for 17 years, and so I figured out that actually it's half and half. Half my life I smoked cannabis, and half my life I haven't. So
okay. So you did the calculus on it. That's cool.
Right. So basically now I'm enjoying it, and I have no restrictions. I have no one judging me, and everything is good with that. So but the point is that I got my own apartment. Then I worked for World Financial Group, which is the marketing arm of Transamerica Insurance, for 3 years as a insurance salesman. That didn't work out, and now I'm really dedicated to getting my poetry known, and also my work towards mental health advocacy, and especially with my program Live Love, which was like a download from God about how to help people whose family members have schizophrenia.
Yeah, that's the part that often gets left out, isn't it? Because when we think about somebody who's dealing with schizophrenia, we think of the patient themselves, but we don't even notice, well, some of us don't really notice that they have family members, they have friends, there are other people who are impacted. And I would imagine there's not a lot of support for that population. I may be wrong.
Well, I feel that I'm like sort of like a unicorn in this, because not only am I dealing with the family members, but I'm also coming from a perspective of lived experience of having survived 50 years of schizophrenia, which no doctor, no therapist, no counselor can ever come close in knowing the illness really is, what the really illness is. And actually, I'm on the verge of finishing my first full my first full program of Live Love, and the family is very happy and everything. But now it's just like a matter of like getting the word out, because you know, I know I am in a unique position, not only as a mentor for the families, but also as an expert on schizophrenia that isn't based on books.
Yeah, so let's get into that a little bit, because like I said at the beginning of the program, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I could probably define it perhaps a little bit better than the average person in the population could do, but even there, it's dangerous ground, because I mean, I really don't know what I'm talking about there. So let's get a little education.
Well,
Tell us what schizophrenia is, and then tell us also what it's like to experience it.
Well, you know, definitely as a poet, when I feel one of my superpowers is definition.
Okay.
And I defined reality in 1976 as a creativity left in the wake of your dreams. Which
I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, that's good.
So, but schizophrenia, it took me a long time to come up with something. But but whenever you talk about schizophrenia, everybody talks about symptoms, and hear voices, or you have delusions, or you think the FBI is it. Dale's simple definition of schizophrenia is: a schizophrenic is someone who's living in a reality that was not conceived on Earth.
Oh.
That's basically.
Of course, that also raises the question: if it wasn't conceived on Earth, where was it conceived?
Well, with me, when I went off on my God tangent, it was conceived in heaven.
Okay.
But basically, it can only be conceived three places. It can either be conceived in hell, heaven, or earth. And I was lucky enough to be guided by God and everything. And everybody who gets sick, basically, mental illness is a spiritual battle within the self. And schizophrenia is that battle taken to an extreme where other people can't really help people fight their battles. So therefore, it's always a choice between, am I going to choose God or am I going to choose the devil? And a lot of times, when someone is hearing satanic voices telling them to destroy themselves or something else and everything, then that's obviously the devil. But I'm not saying that Jesus is the answer to this. And but what I'm saying is that awareness of your thoughts is the first step in getting control of mental illness.
That makes sense. I am curious to know more about what the experience is, though, because it's one of the things that I can't say I've ever read anything about, because it's always written by, clinical psychologists and psychiatrists and so forth. People, like you said, people who have not been through it themselves. I think it's an entirely different and much more interesting thing to hear it from the point of view of someone who's actually experienced it, like from your perspective, like your day-to-day life as you're dealing with this stuff. What was that like to actually experience this throughout your day?
Well, it's like I said in our pre-interview, I've had 3 periods in my life. I've had Dale period, which was up to Dartmouth, getting taken away from Dartmouth, and then being brought to Hackensack in the program, and basically settling in Hackensack. That lasted 29 years till September 26, 1984. And on that day, I had a vision of the entire Earth being incinerated in a thermonuclear holocaust. I mean, everything was absolutely annihilated. There was the only thing that survived was my body, and what I could perceive on that bridge as I was looking around. But basically, that was the secret attack that I predicted in my book that would start the Dialina, which is my spaceship. But long story short, so
So that's a terrifying start right there, because that's just going to scare the crap out of you, right?
Well, it was beyond scaring the crap. It was the death of Dale.
Mm-hmm.
All my delusion, everything that I'd been for the previous 30 years, including 10 years of intensive psychotherapy and Hackensack, was absolutely just wiped from the universe.
Mm.
So, so basically I had to, this is where I began my Dewey period. And Dewey was like my alter ego that basically took over from the corpse of Dale to maintain the continuity of Hackensack and thus the entire Earth in the light of this thermoneutronic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it took 42 years. It took from 1984, 40 years, from 1984 to basically March 25th, 1985, for Dale to come back to his senses and realize himself again in Hackensack.
Do you recall what the tipping point was for that?
It was Dewey's program. Dewey is the ultimate. Dewey's the ultimate Terminator. I say in a world where AI is God, Dewey death is the ultimate. Is the only absolute. And Dewey death is like my personality that has taken on Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator and won the war of technology for mankind. So
okay. Wow.
that's the war that's been going on for the last 42 years since Dale died. But
right.
Basically, so what happened was I just realized one day about a month and a half ago I was Dale.
Oh, recently.
Yeah, it's and this was on the bootstraps of my deciding after 50 years I wasn't God, and that actually trying to be God was a distraction that had kept me from achieving everything I could have as Dale if I hadn't had the delusion.
Wow. My goodness.
So now I have 10 years. On my 70th birthday, I talked to God and he said I have 10 years left at least. So basically now I have to concentrate the last 50 years of what I could have done as Dale when I thought I was God into the next 10 years of absolute production to see what really can happen when I'm at my potential.
Well, I mean, it makes sense to me because one of the topics we talk about a lot here on the program is the idea that the future is unknown. The past we have no control over. So the only thing we have to deal with is now. It's the only thing that's not even an option. So that's essentially what you're saying. You had all this past history, but you're living for now, and you're going to do as much living as you can during that now. And you're going to try to bring in as much as you wanted to do previously into that now. So that's living in the now.
Well, one thing that I've recently really gotten into, I just started a podcast called the Do Andrew, DW Andrew is in Andy, Do Andrew Conspiracy.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that we talk about is this idea of, sort of like sovereignty and God and everything. And I'm sorry, I lost the train of thought that you were saying.
What I was asking about was the recency of it led you to an acceptance of the fact that you were living in the now. And I talked about how we don't have the future, we don't have the past, we only have the now. And literally what you're talking about when you talk about drawing from what you could have done in the past and putting it into the now, you're saying, regardless of what happened in the past, here are things I wish I had done. I'm going to do them now because now is what I've got.
Right. And I've been freed from my delusion to be able to pursue that.
Which is important.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And what I was going to say is I come up with a very simple formula for a successful life, Walt.
Okay, what is it?
Go deal to deal. Take things one deal at a time, and instead of going step by step, go deal by
Yeah, my
deal.
deal.
Because
Okay.
step is a flat road, but dale is every dale is a step up, and
Yeah, why
every
not?
dale has the next dale.
So you're on the next Dale right now. That's good.
Correct.
Yeah, that's very good. I like that. So, okay, well, now we have an idea at least of what it's like to go through it, and the fact that it's such a recent transition for you. A month and a half ago, you had this recognition, and you basically started putting your mental life back together again.
Right.
That alone is a major achievement to get to that point. But now you're in the process of doing that, and I gather you're doing this in part through podcasts. You mentioned you have your own podcast.
Right.
You're doing this one. You're probably doing other podcasts as well. So that's a part of it. But let's just talk a little bit about what it's like in the last month and a half. What has that experience been like?
Well, let me just let me try to give some context to it. So the reason that I decided, I've been wanting to do a podcast for about 6 months, and I've been like interviewing people, you know, asking people about like maybe co-hosting and everything.
Okay.
And so basically, this friend, this acquaintance turning friend on a spiritual awareness group that I'm on. Basically, you know, we've got to know each other and everything.
Mhm.
And he was looking to like get on podcasts, and he gave me a call and he said, why should I start a podcast? Let's just you and I do it. And we did it within a week.
Nice.
And but you know, the reason that I knew that I could trust him and there was a good idea is because frankly, Walt, he was the first person in 70 years who ever just said to me, "I like you."
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. That strikes me as being something that would be a major issue too, because first of all, you're not getting a lot of positive feedback from others. Probably does a lot of damage to your own sense of self and how you talk to yourself. So you have a lot that you're trying to change there, that you're trying to transition on. And I can see where you get somebody who comes along who appreciates you in a way you've never been. That's a huge thing. That we're not talking about a small deal there. We're talking about a life-changing deal.
It was, and but you know, but that's just like one of the every day is a blessing now. I mean, every day is an unexpected blessing because I've given up this idea I have to be God. I'm letting God act in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore every day is a blessing. But I've been doing a lot of deep thinking, and actually another very significant, perhaps even more significant thing than my transition to back to Dale was that my quote commanding officer in my army, who I've known since college in 1982.
Wow.
And he was a Vietnam vet, so we said that he was the keeper of the eternal M16. His name was Fred.
Okay.
His name was Fred. So basically, Fred was born in 1947, and I was born in 1955. So basically, everybody in the world, I've never, until his death, I have never had a day in my life without Fred blocking my light.
Wow.
So, but that's not only for me, this is for everybody, because Fred was the warlord. And, so in terms of my own progression, basically I've spent 50 years building myself into the living incarnation of the Lord, of some sort of deity. I'm not going to give it I built myself into Dale as the person who said he was God.
Got it. Right.
Let's just say it that way.
Yeah, I got it.
But that means that everybody who I've ever encountered is someone who I've created in a human image to live their human life.
Mhm.
And when they die, it's over. But and no matter how much they hurt me, or no matter how much anger or something, it's over for me, because I know that I'm still here.
Mhm.
And Fred basically has been he was a great American warrior, and basically he was like the guard after World War II against the communists. And I know this might sound like crazy history and everything. I'll get to the point about Fred. Fred to me was the living incarnation of death.
Oh.
So basically, I changed the 23rd Psalm, because valley means dale. Dale is valleys. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
So I changed it to, yea, I walk through the valley of Fred, and Fred is dead.
That's fun. I like that. What does Fred think of that? I'm kind of curious.
Well, he's dead.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So, okay, well, that gives us a little bit
but getting back to the point, we're only in the second week after Fred, since June 7th, 1947, when he was born.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the whole, Trump, and I don't know how you stand in politics, but this whole idea of like the golden age, some people have been talking about.
Yeah,
it really is about to arrive, but it's because the battle has been going on endlessly since eternity. I call it the never-ending saga of Duck versus Muck, and with the death of Fred, Muck is dead. So therefore, only Duck light can now shine, and things are going to get better a lot quicker in ways that people just won't understand consciously, I don't think. But the whole planet has been liberated from the shadow of Fred.
As most of my listeners know, I have 3 co-hosts who do the show with me. One of them is Emery, who couldn't join us today. Second one is Joel Elston, who does I do 2 recordings on Monday. After this one, about 2 hours after we're done here, I'll do one with him as well. He was my 12th interview back in 2012.
That's a preacher, right?
No, he's not a preacher. He's a life coach who's a former therapist and was a gambling addict and has this really fascinating history.
Oh, okay.
The reason I mentioned him is he and I did a podcast episode the day before the last presidential election day here in the U.S. And of course, we didn't know what the result was going to be at that point. And he made a really good comment that he's actually made previously, but that was the most recent time that he mentioned it. He said, it doesn't really matter who wins tomorrow, because what I can tell you is no matter who wins 4 years from now, I'm going to be better off. How do I know? Because that's what's been the case every 4 years since I got past my gambling addiction. And literally, if you hear his story, you find out it really is true. His life has gotten better and better and better and better.
Right.
And I like that, because that means it doesn't really matter what the political situation is, whether you're for or against it. It makes no difference at all. Your life can be better now, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, because you're going to make your life better 2 years, 4 years, 6 years from now. I mean, the political situation is secondary to all that. So no matter where you are on the spectrum, it doesn't matter. Your life can be better. And I think that's what's actually happening with a lot of people right now.
Well, just in my own personal idiosyncratic universe, with Fred dead, that means we have returned to Duck Wars.
Okay.
And I'll give you a quick background. So I'm a Disney chipmunk because of Chip and Dale, but did you know I'm a Disney duck too, Walt?
How so? I'm not seeing the connection.
So my initials are DW. My father's initials were Lou, LEW.
Uh-huh.
My best friend's name is Hugh, and
Huey, Louie, Dewey.
And Hugh's father's name was Donald. So basically you got Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Donald. So
I love it.
that's the background to my second 7-year joke. Now you want to hear the joke?
Okay.
What do you get when you cross the Disney chipmunks with the Disney ducks?
I can hardly wait. What do you get?
Me.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
But anyway, with Fred dead, that means that there can be no more civilian casualties, and therefore, Duck versus it's become a debate between Donald and Huey as for the soul of America. And meanwhile, Dewey, I'm just sitting back in my estate in Teaneck, Hackensack City, and making sure everything's secure and no violence breaks out. But you know, but if you consider the possibility of Duck Wars as opposed to Duck versus Muck Wars, then Duck Wars has no M16. There is no mortality, and even if you do braai, you aren't going to die.
That's not quite the way I would have structured it, but if it works for you, that's all that really matters. I mean, it doesn't make any difference.
And if you braai, you either go to Dewey, which is long-term hospitalization, or Chucky, which is short-term hospitalization.
Okay, I'll take your word for it on that one too. I do want to get back to the schizophrenia topic though, because it is
okay.
We're having fun with it, obviously, but it's also a serious topic. And one of the things that comes to my mind but anytime that I hear the word schizophrenia, there's as much as many of us will try to be non-judgmental, we're going to have judgment associated with it just because of the way our culture views things, because of the way the topic is discussed. It's almost impossible for the average person to not be judgmental about it, which is a challenge because if we're trying to look at something like this non-judgmentally and we don't have the experience or the background or the cultural support to do that, we have a lot of trouble with that. So let's talk about the non-judgmental approach to schizophrenia. How do you frame that? How do you approach that, not only in your own life, but also with the people you work with?
Well, one thing I feel, and this is one of the reasons why I think I came out so well, is I refuse to be a victim of my diagnosis.
Oh, that's huge. That's huge.
I meant for a long time I was, but you know that ultimately was like a major turn in the road.
Yeah,
that like really put me on the way to recovery. Is I'm not going to be a victim of my diagnosis. And even when, you know, I meant even when I was at Fairleigh Dickinson, I went back to Fairleigh Dickinson. You know, I was a very good student. People liked me and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I go up to like a new cohort and say, "Hi, I'm Dale. I'm a schizophrenic," and you know, and if they ran away, well, fine. You know, that was their choice. But you know, if they talked to me or if they were interested, then I knew that there was a basis in reality for some sort of connection. So, but you know, the thing is that not only is severe mental illness been so stigmatized and demonized and put in such a bad light in so much media, Hollywood stuff, you know.
Oh, sure.
Every time there's a mass shooter, what's his diagnosis? You know, and it's like, and it's very easy to have hate without a diagnosis.
Oh yeah,
I should say that. So, but anyway, so what I stand for is the motto of my company: recovery is always an option. But ultimately, it's an option that, first of all, there's something called agnosognosia. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't know that term, no.
Agnosognosia is a term taken from neurology for stroke victims who can't understand there's something wrong with their brain.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it's been transferred to mental illness by a book called "I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help" by this doctor called Dr. Javier Amador. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so agnosognosia has been transferred to mental health, mental illness, especially severe mental illness. And it means that a person cannot comprehend there's something wrong with their brain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's and they at this point they think that 60 to 80% of people with severe mental illness suffer with agnosignosia.
Really?
So yes, so it's a big problem
Yeah.
because I told you about the death of Dale. That was the end of my agnosignosia. Up till
Okay.
then, I'd seen nothing wrong with saying I was God.
Yeah.
Or and so agnosignosia is like what is like a first major hurdle because to recovery, because until a person is aware that they need help or at least something's wrong, then nothing, they're just going to deteriorate.
Yeah.
So
Well, that becomes obvious. That if you haven't addressed that one, you're not going to get any further. That has to be
exactly, and agnosignosia can be very difficult to overcome.
sure.
I mean, basically I had to kill myself to get over my agnosignosia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. And then the other thing is just like the media, well, everybody has this like idea of a schizophrenic is someone who's standing at a bus stop yelling at the void. That's
No,
that's
that's a
basically,
fair characterization. Yeah.
and obviously that's grossly unfair
Mm.
to 99.9% of schizophrenics, and
Right.
but and there is a need for concerted economic push by the government, because mental health, severe mental illness is an epidemic, and since COVID, mental health itself has become an epidemic.
Well, that is really true. Let's talk about that for a moment because it's one of the, I guess you might call it, side effects that come out of the whole pandemic that really doesn't get much attention. And I suspect in some ways it will continue to not get attention for quite some time. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's because people just want to leave the pandemic behind, which I totally understand. I'm on board with that. But at some point, you have to recognize there was a severe backlash. I can't think of a better word to describe it, that came from the COVID pandemic, which was the backlash of mental health issues coming up all over the place. They appeared in terms of family members being unable to physically be in the same place as family members. I mean,
Right.
there were people who were hospitalized who couldn't even see their family because their family couldn't be let in to see them. So they were isolated from human contact with the people they cared about the most. I mean, and somehow they were supposed to heal and all that. That was the part that boggled my mind.
Well,
But
then the compounding effect is the politics. Trump is like so polarizing.
oh, sure.
Trump has driven families apart, and then also COVID itself, it killed
It did.
people. So
Yeah.
so it's just, but in terms of mental health, there is a pandemic and it's being ignored and this whole thing about homelessness and everything is really a mental health issue as much as a poverty issue. And a lot of people with they say LA jail is the world's biggest insane asylum, just because there's so many people
Yeah.
in there with a diagnosis or who should be diagnosed.
Yeah, right. And probably most of them aren't.
And the whole system is like collapsing because there's too many people getting sick and there's too many facilities being closed down or restructured, and so the whole thing is a big problem. But just in terms of my own schizophrenia, I just feel like I've been extremely fortunate and blessed by God to have come out of it as well as I have.
And of course, the biggest piece of that you've shared with us so far is that you decided you could do something about it. First of all, you decided that it was there. And the second, you decided that you can make the choice to get past it, to move on. And that's magnificently large. One of the things that I think we as humans do is we tend to look to governments and to authorities and so forth to solve our problems. But you've taken the next step that I think is the better step, because the most change in my experience that happens within actual society is change that people conduct locally, first within their own lives, and then in the lives of people that they interact with and help and touch in ways that usually don't get seen, but that's where the best changes take place. So tell us a little bit more about the Live Love program that you have put together, and tell us a little bit about some of the stories that go along with that.
Well, if I could just interject one thing before the Live Love is,
Yeah, sure.
So my first doctor in my first hospital, I said to him, "What's wrong with me? Why am I in here?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, if you broke your leg, you come to the hospital, right, Dale? This is 1975. So if you broke your leg, you come to the hospital, right, Dale?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, you broke your brain." And not only did that stigmatize me for 30 years, but also gave me the motivation to say, you know, you don't know me. And the ensuing years, the brain is a growing organ. It never stops growing. So, basically I was being told all you can ever hope to do is maybe live in a group home and take your medication. And and that not only scared me, but also extremely motivated me to say, you can't put me in that box.
That's huge. That's magnificently huge. When you're working with people in the Live, first of all, talk about what the Live Love program is, and then let's.
Okay, so Live Love is basically an anagram that I feel the Lord downloaded to me. It stands for learn, integrate, validate, explore, and then listen, open, value, and express.
Okay.
And it's a 8-step, 3-month program. It's actually we have like a closing session, so it's like three Zoom calls over 3 months, one-on-one with me, and we just go through a letter a week, a letter a session. And to tell you, I'm not going to say I've had a lot of clients, but in fact I'm actually just finishing up my first full program, but it's been very successful, and the clients seem very happy, and they say, thank you very much. You've given us a lot of ideas that we didn't have any idea about, and actually this was a scholarship on a I don't know if you know Pedro Adeo. He's like a kingdom entrepreneur. That's his official title.
Okay.
But so he teaches entrepreneurship under the kingdom of Jesus. So basically, this program that I'm finishing up was a scholarship given by one of the people from that program to this random family. So, so basically, each session is 45 minutes to an hour, and it's a process of learning, listening, and sort of like understanding not only yourself and the illness, but also the how to improve communication and everything. And the reason I'm doing this is because I call the family caregivers of those with schizophrenia the forgotten victims of mental illness. As you mentioned, Walt, nobody paid, especially with HIPAA, and all these legal restrictions that are put up around people with mental illness and everything. It can be just like absolutely, infuriating or discouraging to deal with the mental health system. And I just feel that I have, with my 50 years of lived experience with schizophrenia, I'm an invaluable resource that people just would come to see it.
And I love that you just are now finishing up your first program doing this, and that's fabulous. So congratulations to you and the clients there. But I know you obviously you can't really share anything specific about the client situation for confidentiality reasons, but just give us an idea of the kinds of things that get addressed in a program like that.
this couple has a daughter who has extreme social anxiety. They aren't sure exactly how what medication. I don't talk about medication because I'm not qualified to do
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
But they ran some ideas that they had for medication past me, and I told them what I knew about the medications.
Okay.
I talked about symptoms. I talk about barriers that people put up, and and how to. One of the things that Dr. Amador does is he has a communication method called LEAP, LEAP, which is listen, empathize, ally, and partner, and that's become a very popular process to break down barriers between people who can't communicate. So but I also have a suggestion, which is something that I picked up in one of my groups, which is I just call it dual listening. But what you do is you make up a question or make up a few questions, put them in a hat, pull out the question, and have someone in your family just answer the question. But no interruptions. Just let them talk for 3 to 5 minutes and answer to the question. And at the end of it, say nothing. Just say thank you. Without judgment. And if you find you're getting alarmed by what they're saying, control the alarm. Because their ability to communicate what's going on with them is essential to them getting better.
Sure, because one of the most powerful tools, if you will, that we have available to us is our human connection. I mean, when we're able to not only have the connection, but to develop it, which means developing it not just emotionally, but also through our communication skills, that's going to all by itself feed a lot of stuff to the person who's needing the help, far more than any government program or any hospital program is ever going to do, because it's human connection.
That's really why I made my focus of family members, because my goal with Live Love is to crack the back of the codependency family caregivers have for their loved ones, to increase their own self-esteem and self-worth so they can be better caregivers.
That's fabulous. That's really fabulous. For someone who wants to learn more about the program and perhaps consider the idea of becoming a part of it, how do they find it? What's the best way to reach out?
Actually, I have a new Gmail. I haven't really verified it yet, but the Gmail is a DEW author AUTHOR25 @gmail.com.
Okay.
And if you're interested not only in Live Love, but I also have books that I have poetry books. I have all sorts of things. So
you were telling me before we got going, you have 5 books of poetry that you published with, was it 5,000 poems you've written? That's crazy.
5,000 poems and 5 books of on Amazon at D.E. Walsh.
Wow, fantastic! Congratulations on that. That's an accomplishment. Yeah.
And plus 6 novels before I even started with poetry.
I love it. That's great. So I take it you do want to hear from people. You want people to reach out because you want to have that communication.
I would, and I'm just So I think do author25 @gmail.com is the best way to get in touch with me. But you can also contact me on Instagram at Dale DALE.Walsh WALSH.14. That's probably the most direct way to get in touch with me.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm also on TikTok at Lord Dugod, LORDEWGOD.
Fair enough. I like that. Yeah. Embrace it. Embrace the reality of it. That's a good thing. Dale, this has been really great. One thing that I have made a practice of doing, particularly in the last few years, I started this podcast 13 years ago next month. But in the last few years, I started to practice because I noticed something. And you're a perfect example of it. We come through life and everybody has bumps along the road. Everybody has challenges, sometimes very severe challenges, traumatic situations, and so forth. And they're the situations where we do experience the most trauma and pain, but they're also the ones that produce the most growth, the most learning, and so forth. And that combination it's a little bit of a challenge at times for us, but it's also something to be rewarded and respected. And one of the things we end up doing as humans is we want to reach out to others and share what we've learned with them. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing both with your poetry, with your podcasts of your own, with your podcast appearances on others like this one, all the different ways that you're reaching out. And it occurred to me, I mean, we have this wonderful medium we can do this with now, right? We have the internet. Right. We can do this. You're in Hackensack. I'm in the Hartford, Connecticut area. We can just have this conversation like it's nothing. We can see each other. This is wonderful, you know? That wasn't available to us 30 years ago. And here it is. It's just like every day. And like you mentioned, we have the social media. We have the ways to publish ourselves. We have all these different ways to put stuff out there. What has come along with that, however, is it's almost become cheapened in terms of how much information is out there, including the information we put out. And it gets ignored how often we are able to help somebody that we never know that we helped them because they saw us on a podcast. They read something that we wrote on Instagram. And this is important stuff. I mean, there are people who have consumed your material, people who have consumed my material here on this podcast, who have been helped in ways I don't even know about.
Right.
And we don't get credit for that. And that to me is the gap that I try to fill. So the way I feel it is this way, Dale, on behalf of those people you've never met and never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping in ways that sometimes you don't even know how you helped them. You just kept putting out your stuff and hoping that people would be helped. Well, people were helped. And on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing. Because you're making a difference in this world.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you know, I thought you were going to ask me at first what was the most painful moment in my life, and I was getting ready to answer that. And then that was like the 5 minutes after the nuclear implosion. And I went to the hospital, and that was the close. I was in despair. It was beyond suicide or anything. It was just like absolute despair. But God was there with me right then, there too. And after 3 days, I got over it, and I switched into Dewey, and now Dale is back, and life is beautiful. But and Fred is dead. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Best of luck with what you're doing with the program and with your own podcast, by the way. Congratulations on that. And we wish you all the best going forward.
Well, I appreciate it, Walt. And thank you very much for having me. And look forward to maybe getting together sometime soon, sometime in the future, where we could discuss developments.
Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.